Hey, and welcome to the channel. With the raids and war fronts and everything else about to come out here pretty soon, I thought it was past time for me to talk a little bit about my impressions of the Battle for Azeroth expansion so far. So you're going to see some trailers playing in the background. Hopefully they work the way that I want them to. Don't be too distracted by them. They're just there because it's my talking head. Um, so I have played World of Warcraft since vanilla. I've experienced every single expansion, played through the majority of the content on all of them, rated in most of them. So I've been around World of Warcraft for a long time. And Battle for Azeroth is one of the most exciting expansions that I've experienced in quite a while. There was a lot of hype building up to it for me, and it had nothing to do with the fact that, we were returning to the conflict between the Alliance and the Horde. Frankly, I don't care about the conflict between the Alliance and the Horde. I play both sides on my characters. I've flip flopped sides and mained on different sides the entire time that I've played the game, although probably with a Horde bias in the early years and an Alliance bias towards the later years. So I really don't care about that. The thing that really drew me into Battle for Azeroth was the settings and the team's willingness to do something interesting and creative with the lore and the writing in the game. For me, World of Warcraft only goes as far as its lore does, in terms of entertaining me and keeping me interested, and same with the zones. If you've got zones that aren't interesting, settings that aren't interesting, you've got to run around in those for like 2 years. So I really loved the way that they decided to split things between the factions and have two entirely different islands so that they could have these different settings and locations that you could be in and you could play in, and that lends a lot of variety. I mean, we have everything from like the deserts of Vol'dun to the swamps of Nazmir. There's a stark difference between everything. Now, so far, I've gotten my warrior to level 120, and I've gotten several of my other characters to somewhere between 111 and 115. So it's a grind. It's work to get all those characters up, but the payoff is very nice. So I've got 12 characters that I'm trying to level from 110 to 120. It's definitely a work of labor, but I have gotten a warrior to 120. I played through all the story content in Vol'dun, Nazmir, and quite a bit of it in Zuldazar. On the Alliance side, I've played through the majority of Stormsong Valley and a little bit of Drustvar. I haven't done any Tiragard Sound yet, so that's where I'm coming from in terms of the content that I have consumed. So, what I will say, I want to start off by saying um, some of the things that I really, really enjoy about this expansion. The zones are fantastic. Even the zones that are kind of a retread of the stuff that we've done before, like I think Zuldazar, it reminds me a lot of like Stranglethorn Vale and every other jungle dino, Ungoro crater style um, zone that we've had before. And I think to me, it kind of shines the least because of that. And it felt very samey and kind of repetitive to me when I did that zone. It still looks gorgeous. Drustvar is awesome. Somehow they took what should have been a crappy desert like you had out in Tanaris, and they turned it into this thing where you could just find pockets of like life and interesting elementals and all this stuff going on. Nazmir was dark and bloody and just kind of oozed with evil, but there were still these places like Kragwa's Burrow where you could go and they're just vibrant and beautiful. On the Alliance side, I love Stormsong's Valley. I kind of thought might be kind of boring because of the way that it's just green, and we've had green before. It kind of reminds me a little bit of some of the zones from Mist of Pandaria, but the combination of the way the buildings are designed with the Kultiran theme of boats and sailing. Between that and the variety on the enemies, even just bringing back Quillbore in a new and interesting way, I think that made the zone stand out to me. So I still think that one was good, dressed far as dark and spooky. And like I said, Tiergard Sound, I haven't done yet. So what I've seen of it from riding around in boats and things like that looks very nice. The capital cities are awesome. Borealis confuses the hell out of me sometimes. Zuldazar seems pretty straightforward. So definitely the zones and the settings so far have been awesome. And every expansion we usually get one or two new land masses to go and explore, maybe even more than that. There's been some speculation about the Dragon Isles possibly being on the way, and that with the level of detail and quality that they have put into these zones, I'm excited for whatever is coming next. The other thing that I will say has really stood out to me as being great are the dungeons. The dungeons, I find the dungeons to be fairly interesting, both visually. There's a lot of trash and stuff like that in them as well. But so far, they've all been pretty entertaining, and I like some of the more lighthearted, free-spirited ones, like Freehold or those kinds of things. I like the introduction of the new races. We've got the Volpera, the Sethrak, the Tortolan. I'm probably forgetting some other ones, the Coltirans. And all these races have been very interesting to me for one reason or another. I love, the Tortolans and how they use shell as a substitute for a common swear word. That's pretty hilarious. The Volpera, I love the little alpaca, mounts that pull their wagons around, and just it's just been a great setting and environment to be in this expansion and to play through. The dungeons, like I said, reflect a lot of that as well. There's a lot of fun stuff, like in Freehold, having to catch a slippery pig, or having to get the snake eye in Temple of Sothralis and put that into the skull. There's interesting things going on that aren't just your typical, all right, let's go and pull as much stuff as we can and kill it. The storytelling in the zones that I have fully completed, I enjoyed the storytelling in Nazmir. I loved the storytelling in Vol'dun. A lot of times it was the side quests, the optional stuff that kind of really caught my attention and made me go, oh, well, that's clever, or that's fun, or oh, that was really cool to do. So the storytelling has been great. I'm sure you've seen the cinematics and things like that that have come out. All the different Warbringer cinematics, the old soldier one that played behind me here at the beginning of this video. All that stuff has been great. And I think that for me, this has been one of the best storytelling expansions, visual design expansions, and leveling experience expansions in quite a while. And the sad thing is that I think for the most part, that's where my positives end, because I've got complaints and I've got plenty of them. So it starts with, I made an entire series on specialization guides and how to play them and everything. And it was really fun to do those videos. I wanted to do them to help you guys who are watching the channel. Even though I didn't really have a channel at the time that I made them, I wanted to help people who I knew were going to be coming back for Battle for Azeroth or just trying the game for the first time. And I wanted to do them for myself as well, because I was trying to pick an Alliance main and a Horde main to play through and do the content. And at the time that I was trying to make that decision, doing a YouTube channel and making content wasn't really on my mind. So as I went through and I did these, I started to see like, oh, I don't think it's quite as bad as people say, with all of our artifact stuff getting removed. The specs, they still feel pretty fun. They feel pretty good. And what I found through leveling my characters is something that I've run into over and over again in World of Warcraft. And that's, at some point, it just gets boring. Your rotation. Your skills and abilities. You get your kind of like flow down, and then in your talent tree, your talents A lot of times it feels like there's just one that is the best and there's not really a choice, or if you make a choice that you think might seem fun, it doesn't really pay off as being fun, and you don't do as well when you're trying to damage and kill enemies and complete quests, and then you level slower, and now you're getting to 120 later than everybody else, and so that lack of interesting choices, it's something that I really liked about Diablo 3, was the fact that they didn't give you like 8 million abilities, but they gave you a few abilities, and then you could choose like a rune or an augment for those abilities that would totally change the way that you played with that ability. You may have a fireball and you augment it, so now it's 3 fireballs, or now it's not a fireball at all, it's some big circle patch of fire on the ground that enemies stand in and take damage over time. That totally changes the way that you use that ability, and it gives you the ability to really create a build that's specific to you and your character. I do think that with the removal of the artifacts, with the lack of stuff that comes to your character after level 100, and the fact that to me so far Azerite traits seem really, really underwhelming. Classes just feel more watered down. They feel more boring. And I'm not a huge fan of that. I really wish that that were not the case. I really hope that as this expansion goes on, Blizzard is able to give us some other kind of systems to be able to really make our characters feel unique to us, as opposed to feeling like, oh, okay, well, 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 3, that's my talent build. It's the best one. It's the only one. Maybe I can switch one talent if I feel like it. So that's one of the areas that I've been pretty disappointed with Blizzard in terms of the direction that they've taken the classes. Um, One of the other things that we saw start to come about in Legion, and that I'm fully experiencing now in Battle for Azeroth, that I hate, is I hate that they treat Azerite power or artifact power like it's a reward that we care about. That drives me absolutely insane. It's like, okay, I've got to do this quest to get this experience to level up, because if I don't get to level 120, then I can't play the in game content. Okay, well, we've done that for so long that it just kind of makes sense. I do the quest, I get XP, I level up at max level, I can do the stuff. Well, they're basically introducing something that's just like experience points, but they're treating it like it's a loot drop or a pet or a mount or something you're going to be really excited about. You kill a rare mob and you get a little artifact, a little Azerite crystal that gives you 75 artifact power. I don't care. Like, that's not a cool drop to me. That's it's bullshit, to be honest. You're gonna sit there and tell me that I'm going to kill this rare mob, or I'm going to go off and do this island expedition that takes like 30 minutes to complete, and all I'm going to do is power up the item that if I don't power it up, I just suck at the game and I can't use the abilities on my gear. you know, Artifact Power, Azerite, the Heart of Azeroth, and all that stuff. It's a required system if you want to play the game the way that it's intended. It's not fun. It's not interesting. It doesn't give you a visual update to your character. It doesn't do anything like that. It's just a number. It's experience points, but they've added another set of experience points, or another path to experience for you, where they can just reward you with this random number and say, good job. So as you're leveling up, I mean, you're getting reputation, you're getting experience, now you're getting artifact power, and that's just not exciting to me. It's awful. It's a type of design that I hate. I really loved how in Warlords of Draenor you were able to kill a rare mob and you got a piece of gear, or maybe you got a cool toy, or you had the chance to get a mount to drop or something, and that made going out and killing rares really interesting. And they still had some of that in Legion, and now it seems like in Battle for Azeroth, yeah, sometimes you can get a piece of gear, one time off of an enemy, and go on your merry way with your little Azerite shard. So that's a system that I don't like, which leads me into island expeditions and how I think that they are absolutely just completely unrewarding as they currently stand. And maybe that's because a lot of the drops that are intended to be in island expeditions are just at a really low drop rate and no one's getting them, because I know there are pets, there are mounts and things that you're supposed to be able to get from island expeditions, but as it stands, it seems like you go in, you do all this work, you get Azerite out of it, and you leave going, did my character actually get stronger? I don't know. I'm just filling up this bar, hoping that I can use these abilities that I've already said I think are pretty lackluster and uninteresting so far. So that kind of drives me crazy. And I see a lot of things that to me indicate a possible laziness on Blizzard's part. Like, I look at one half of the expansion, right? I look at the story, I look at the zones, I look at the dungeons, all the stuff that I said, man, this is really great. And I can't help but think that they put a lot of time, a lot of heart, a lot of soul into this stuff. But at the same time, I see these other systems where it just comes across to me as them being lazy. So, artifact power as a reward, lazy. They said that they don't want to do class sets anymore because when you go to a raid, they want to develop um, sets of armor that reflect the raid. Well, there's only one armor set, like, per armor type. There's like, tint variations, and there's a little bit of difference between the uh, regular difficulties versus mythic, but it still comes down to, for mage, priest, warlock, there's one set. So that means that that's two sets they didn't have to design because they're just designing one set themed around the raid for that particular armor class, and that's what everybody's going to get. That comes across as lazy to me. They have gone with the mission table where you have to put in your followers and send them out on missions and everything like that. They've switched that back kind of to Warlords of Draenor, but worse, where you don't have the choice about putting in, the champions that you think are the best. And let me say first off, there usually were champions that were the best. Even if there were like 10 champions and you could only use 5, there were like 5 that were the best and there was a good build and you usually use that build. So I can understand them paring it down, but they've pared it down so that not only do you only get enough champions that you can use and you don't have any extra, so they'll all be out, they'll all be going on missions, but they're all the same. The only difference is what faction you're on. And to me, that means, okay, they didn't have to design all these extra champions. And, they basically just watered down the mission table. And I'm not saying that, like the mission table was my favorite thing, but it's just another flag. It's another thing for me to say, okay, all right. And then we have the Heart of Azeroth system, which I think was a good streamlining of the collection of artifact power. But I think that compared to the artifacts we had in Legion, there's just so much less offered with the Azerite powers. And I say that as someone who, genuinely likes some of the powers in concept, but I just don't think the execution works very well. I like being able to hit things, and occasionally a lightning bolt will come down and hit something. That's pretty neat, but I don't feel powerful. I don't feel like this piece of gear that I've been, doing island expeditions or whatever and collecting this artifact power for is really making my character that much more powerful. It feels like half a talent or something is really what I'm getting there. Um, and so along with that, one of the things that I really have been disappointed with, I was disappointed with it in Legion, and I still am now, is the fact that once you hit level 100, there's nothing. There's just nothing. It's whatever they decide to put into the expansion, which could be great or it could be horrible. In this case, we got, the Heart of Azeroth, which I think is mediocre at best right now. In Legion, we got artifact weapons, and those were pretty awesome. So I don't like how there's no continual progression past 100. There's no extra talents, there's no extra spells. As I was leveling up my character, I was thinking to myself, why are these numbers even here? Why do I need to get to 120? What is 111 doing for me? What's 112 doing for me? What's 113 doing for me? Like when I hit those levels, how does that help me? And with the way that the world scales now, it doesn't. You don't really get stronger. In some cases, you get worse because of the way the scaling works, and your character is no longer as powerful as they felt at a lower level. But there's no meaning to have being level 114. It means nothing. You could turn off XP and you could farm artifact power and get your Heart of Azerite up, or Heart of Azerite up, and use the traits on your gear. Literally, the only thing you're doing is you're trying to hit a number that Blizzard has put in front of you and said you must be 120 in order to have fun. And I was just thinking as I was leveling, why couldn't they have done something else? Why couldn't they have provided some other incentive for us to go out and do the quest and experience the world that didn't involve this arbitrary increase in levels and trying to get, these 10 levels? They could have done any number of things. They could have come up with a new reward system where when you go out and you do the quest that you can only do one time, you get a special currency or something that you could spend on pets or mounts or transmogs or, something like that. So, those are in general the sort of things that I have been disappointed with in Battle for Azeroth. So does that mean that I hate the game? Does it mean that I'm ready to quit or any? No, it doesn't. I do think because of the story, because of the settings, I'm excited for the teams that made that content. I'm excited to see what they have coming next. So congratulations to those teams because I feel like you have done a really great job. I'm not excited to go get into raids or to do this higher difficulty level content at the moment just because I don't feel like the gameplay systems are on par with some of the ways that they have been in the past. And I don't know if they're on par with a lot of the things that modern MMOs are doing. And I say that pretty much thinking that World of Warcraft is the best MMO that's on the market right now in terms of staying power, history, number of game systems available to players, variety of content you can play. It does lag in a lot of other areas, but there are a lot of features in other MMOs that I feel like Blizzard just hasn't got around to yet, I guess. So we will see. We will see. Um, all that being said, I'm definitely looking forward to what's coming next. I didn't want to end on a completely, pessimistic note. I just really wanted to vent what I liked and didn't like about the expansion. I will say I'm loving the new armor sets too. A lot of those look cool, even though I do feel like that, one set per armor type in the raids is lazy. The questing gear and stuff like that has been awesome. I'm very happy to have more helmets that don't look stupid on my Worgen. And yeah, that's all around. That's great. So those are my thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Do you disagree with something that I said? Do you feel like the Azerite system is like interesting and offers a lot of variety? Do things get better? As we progress further into the expansion, what do you think is going to happen? And do you have some complaints? Do you think that maybe the story sucked this time around and you just really didn't like it? So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching the video, and let me know if you like this type of video. I may do some more of these in the future. Definitely not this long. This was a long time coming, so I just had a lot to get out there. And yeah, we're about to jump into the first raid. We're going to get war fronts. World bosses are coming. All kinds of stuff is happening this week, so look forward to that. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.